From the very beginning of creation, when God established the heavens and filled them with hosts of mighty beings of light, one stood out among the countless angels, Michael. His very name carried a challenge, a proclamation of loyalty to the Almighty. Who is like God? That is what Michael means, and it was more than a name. It was a declaration, a battle cry, and a reminder that no power, no spirit, no creature, however great, could ever be equal to the Creator himself. Before the rebellion of Satan, the heavens were filled with perfect order. Each angel had its role. Gabriel was the messenger, Raphael the healer, Uriel the light of wisdom, and many more filled the skies. But Michael, chosen by God, was to be something different. He was to be a warrior, a defender, a commander of the armies of heaven. Unlike others who proclaimed God's glory in song or carried his word to the prophets, Michael was the one who stood at the front lines, prepared to draw the sword against any threat to God's kingdom. The Bible reveals Michael not as a passive figure, but as a mighty archangel. In the book of Daniel, he is described as the great prince who protects God's people. In Revelation, he is the one who leads the heavenly hosts against the dragon. Even in the brief letter of Jude, Michael appears in a mysterious struggle over the body of Moses. These fragments show us that Michael's role was unique. He was chosen to oppose, to resist, and to defend. But where did Michael's strength come from? It was not his own. Unlike Satan, who became corrupted by his pride, Michael's power came entirely from his faithfulness to God. His name, Who is Like God, was not only his identity, it was his constant reminder that victory belonged to the Lord, not to himself. Michael never sought to exalt his own throne above the stars. He never sought worship. He never desired glory for himself. Instead, he pointed all glory back to God, making him the perfect warrior to stand against the prideful rebellion of Lucifer. Jewish tradition often paints Michael as the guardian of Israel, the protector of God's covenant people. Ancient rabbis believed that whenever Israel went into battle, Michael was there, standing in the unseen realm, guiding and shielding them. Christian tradition would later expand this vision, seeing Michael as not only the protector of one nation, but as the great defender of all the faithful throughout history. From the earliest days, Michael was depicted with a sword in his hand and armor upon his chest. Not the armor of men made of iron and bronze, but the armor of light, forged in obedience and faith. His sword was not forged in fire, but in the will of God himself. When he drew this sword, no fallen power could withstand him. Some of the earliest church fathers wrote about Michael as the angel who appeared to Joshua before the Battle of Jericho. When Joshua encountered a man with a drawn sword and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" the angel replied, "I am the commander of the army of the Lord." Many believed this was Michael himself, manifesting to show Israel that they were not alone. Others believed Michael appeared at the burning bush alongside God's presence, or at the Red Sea when the waters parted. Though Scripture does not name him directly in those events, his reputation as the warrior of heaven led many to see him in those moments of divine intervention. Michael's very being was defined by loyalty. If Lucifer was the embodiment of rebellion, Michael was the embodiment of faithfulness. If Lucifer exalted himself, Michael humbled himself before God. And when the time came for war in heaven, it would be Michael who would rise with the armies of light to defend the throne of the Almighty. The ancient writings describe him not merely as one angel among many, but as the great prince, the Archangel. In Greek, Archangel means chief messenger, but in Michael's case, it meant more than a messenger. He was the commander, the one who gave orders, the one who rallied the ranks of angels to stand firm against darkness. From the very beginning, Michael's story prepared the world for a cosmic battle. While Adam and Eve walked in the garden, while prophets received visions, while kings rose and fell, Michael remained steadfast in heaven, awaiting the day when his sword would be drawn against the greatest enemy of all. This is why the book of Revelation gives him such prominence. When John saw the visions of the end of times, he saw Michael rising to fight the dragon. Not Gabriel, not any other angel, but Michael. This shows us that his role had always been destined to be the one who would face the serpent of old, the one who had tempted Eve, the one who had deceived nations, the one who had dared to challenge God himself. The origins of Michael are not about power, but about devotion. His greatness did not come from his own strength, but from his unwavering alignment with God's will. He was mighty, not because of what he was, but because of whom he served. And this is the heart of his story. Michael's identity is inseparable from his loyalty to the Creator. In the ancient heavenly order, when Lucifer, the most radiant of angels, began to grow proud, it was Michael's very name that stood as a direct rebuke. Who is like God? With that question, every boast of Satan was silenced. No angel could rival God. No creation could rival the Creator. And when the time came, it was Michael who carried this truth into battle. Thus, from the very beginning of time, Michael was not simply another angel in the host of heaven. He was the defender, the commander, the protector. His story begins not with himself, but with God, for his name reminds us of the ultimate truth. No matter how powerful the enemy may seem, no one is like God. In the eternal realms of heaven, harmony once reigned supreme. Every angel had its role, every choir its song, and every movement its purpose. Among the greatest of these celestial beings stood two radiant figures: Michael, whose very name proclaimed the question, "Who is like God?" and Lucifer, the morning star, whose brilliance dazzled even the heavenly host. At first, they stood side by side, guardians and servants of divine order, both magnificent in beauty and power. Yet within Lucifer's heart, a seed of pride began to take root, a desire not to serve, but to be exalted, not to bow, but to be worshipped. Lucifer's pride grew silently at first, hidden beneath his splendor. He looked upon the throne of God and wondered why he, the most adorned of all, should not sit upon it. His wings sparkled with jeweled radiance, and his garments shimmered like precious stones. But behind his beauty was a growing shadow. He began to whisper to others, to question divine order, to invite doubt into a realm that had known only perfect trust. And slowly, a third of the host turned their gaze toward him, tempted by the allure of rebellion, blinded by the promise of false freedom. Michael, by contrast, never sought power for himself. His strength was rooted not in ambition, but in obedience. Where Lucifer said, "I will rise," Michael proclaimed, "Who is like God?" Where Lucifer desired to ascend above the stars, Michael bowed lower before the throne. His armor was not jeweled, but radiant with divine light, glowing not with vanity, but with truth. In the heavenly courts, the tension grew as the two stood opposed not as equals, but as reflections of two eternal choices: pride or humility, rebellion or obedience. Then came the day when heaven itself trembled. The whispers of rebellion had become a roar. Lucifer declared openly his defiance, proclaiming that he would ascend and claim the throne of the Almighty. His followers gathered, their wings darkened, their eyes burning with defiance. It was no longer hidden, no longer subtle. It was war. And at that moment, Michael stepped forward. No longer was he only the guardian, no longer just the defender of nations. He now became the commander of heaven's armies. The battle that followed was unlike any conflict ever imagined by human minds. It was not fought with swords of steel or shields of iron, but with the very powers of heaven and the essence of obedience versus rebellion. Michael's army shone like fire across the skies, their voices echoing like thunder, their movements precise and united. Lucifer's forces, though radiant, bore within them the corruption of pride, a brilliance turned to shadow, a beauty marred by ambition. The heavens shook as angel clashed with angel, light colliding with false light, truth striking against deception. Michael faced Lucifer directly, not with arrogance, but with holy authority. His sword burned with the flame of divine justice, and his shield radiated the strength of faith. Lucifer, though clothed in beauty, struck with venom, his every movement filled with defiance. The clash between them was more than physical. It was cosmic, spiritual, eternal. One cried out, "I will ascend." The other responded, "Who is like God?" That single question shattered the illusions of pride and pierced the darkness with unyielding light. The war raged on. A third of heaven had fallen into rebellion, and yet the loyal angels, under Michael's command, would not falter. With every strike, they reaffirmed the truth that no one could rise above the Almighty. The dragon Lucifer, transformed into the serpent of old, fought with fury, but the strength of heaven's armies overwhelmed him. And in that climactic moment, Michael struck with divine authority, and Lucifer was cast down. The gates of heaven closed to him forever, and his followers plummeted with him into the abyss, stripped of their former glory. Silence followed the storm. Where once the heavens had echoed with battle, now there was peace restored. Michael, standing victorious, did not boast or exalt himself. His victory was not his own. It was the triumph of God's truth, the proclamation of eternal order. For this reason, Michael was forever remembered not only as a warrior, but as the defender of faith, the one who stood firm when others faltered, the one who proved by his very existence that no one could be like God. Yet the story did not end in heaven. The war had shifted its battleground. The dragon, defeated but not destroyed, turned his gaze toward earth. Humanity would now face his deception, his temptations, his wrath. And once again, Michael would appear not only as a heavenly commander, but as the eternal guardian of those who sought truth. He would stand as protector of nations, defender of the weak, and champion against the powers of darkness. His sword would not rest, nor would his watchfulness falter, for the war, though won in heaven, would continue on earth until the end of days. Michael's role became a symbol across generations. To the prophets of Israel, to the early church, to those who faced persecution and trials. In visions and in scriptures, his figure returned again and again, a reminder that the fight was not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities, against forces unseen. Michael stood not as a myth or a legend, but as a living presence, a commander whose faithfulness continues to echo throughout eternity. And so, the story of Michael in the battle against pride became more than just a tale of angels. It became the eternal truth of creation, that pride leads to downfall, but humility to victory. That rebellion ends in ruin, but obedience in glory. That no matter how radiant the deceiver, no one, not even the brightest of angels, could ever be like God. The war in heaven had been decided. Michael, the angel of God's armies, had driven Satan and his followers out of the heavenly courts. Yet the story did not end there. Defeat in heaven only fueled Satan's hatred, and the focus of his wrath now turned toward humanity, the creation of God that bore his image. The battle that began above now continued on earth, and once again the angel Michael stood at the very center of it. The scriptures reveal that Michael was not only a warrior during the cosmic rebellion, but also the appointed guardian of God's people. In the book of Daniel, he is called the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. This title is more than ceremonial. It means Michael was commissioned to defend the faithful against unseen forces of darkness that seek to manipulate kings, nations, and destinies. While Satan plotted to corrupt the hearts of men, Michael's role was to intervene, protecting the covenant people from complete destruction. One of the clearest windows into this spiritual conflict is found in Daniel's vision. Daniel prayed for understanding, yet his answer was delayed for 21 days. Why? Because a spiritual battle raged in the unseen realm. The messenger angel who carried Daniel's answer was opposed by the prince of Persia, a demonic power that influenced earthly empires. For 3 weeks, the conflict persisted until Michael, the angel, came to his aid. With Michael's intervention, the barrier was broken, and Daniel received the revelation that shaped the course of prophecy. This scene reminds us that Michael is not just a figure of triumph, but of persistence. He is the angel who engages when darkness tries to silence the voice of God. He is the one who ensures that divine messages reach their destination, even when hostile powers seek to block them. It shows that spiritual warfare is not abstract. It affects the flow of history, the rise and fall of kingdoms, and even the prayers of the faithful. Later, in the same prophetic book, Michael is described as the one who will arise during the time of great trouble, unlike any other time in history. This points toward the end of days, when Satan's fury against humanity will reach its peak. While Satan seeks to enslave nations, deceive the masses, and destroy the covenant, Michael will stand as the defender, shielding God's people and ensuring their survival. In this role, we see Michael not as a passive figure, but as an active force in shaping the destiny of humanity under God's command. But what is striking is the way Michael operates compared to Satan. Satan thrives on deception, manipulation, and domination. He feeds on pride and inflames rebellion. Michael, in contrast, moves with humility. He does not act for himself, but only as a servant of the Most High. Even when contending with Satan directly, Michael does not speak with arrogance. The book of Jude reveals a moment when Michael disputed with the devil over the body of Moses. In that confrontation, Michael did not dare to pronounce judgment on his own authority. Instead, he declared, "The Lord rebuke you." This is a profound insight. Michael's power lies not in personal ambition, but in absolute reliance on God. This principle is crucial for us to understand. Satan fell because of pride, because he wanted to be like God. Michael, on the other hand, stands firm because he acknowledges that only God is sovereign. His very name, "Who is like God," is both a declaration and a reminder victory comes not from self-exaltation, but from submission to the Almighty. That is why Michael remains unshaken while Satan falls deeper into corruption. As history moved forward, Michael's protective role continued. He stood unseen during critical moments when empires threatened to crush Israel, when kings attempted to erase the covenant, and when Satan sought to destroy the lineage from which the Messiah would come. Though human eyes could not see it, Michael and his host fought in the spiritual realm, ensuring that God's promises remained unbroken. Every attempt of Satan to sabotage the plan of salvation was met by Michael's defense. In Revelation, Michael appears again in the climactic vision of John. There, he leads the armies of heaven against the dragon and his angels. The battle is fierce, but the outcome is decisive. Satan is hurled down to the earth, no longer allowed to accuse the faithful before God's throne. This image completes the cycle from Michael's first confrontation with Satan in the courts of heaven, to his ongoing role as guardian of God's people, to his final victory in the last war. But Revelation also reveals the cost of this victory. It says that the dragon, enraged at his defeat, turns his fury toward the earth, against the faithful who keep God's commandments. This is the sobering reality. Michael's triumph in heaven intensifies the struggle on earth. Humanity becomes the battlefield where the consequences of Satan's rage unfold. Yet the vision is not hopeless, for the presence of Michael means that no matter how fierce the storm, the faithful are not abandoned. The third part of Michael's story, then, is not just about the ancient war in heaven, but about the ongoing war in our world. It is about a cosmic struggle that continues to affect nations, families, and individuals. Michael, the angel of God's armies, remains active not in legend, but in reality. His victories remind us that the battle belongs to God, and that no matter how powerful the adversary may seem, there is one who stands above all. Michael's name continues to echo as a challenge to pride and as a proclamation of truth. Who is like God? And this truth sets the stage for what comes next. The role of Michael is not finished. The visions of Daniel and Revelation point us forward to the final confrontation, when Michael will rise once more, not just as a defender of Israel, not only as a messenger of protection, but as the commander of heaven's armies at the very end of days. What began in heaven will be completed on earth, and Michael will stand at the center of that great conclusion. After the mighty expulsion of Satan and his fallen host from the heavenly realms, the story of Michael the angel enters a new phase one, where his mission is not merely the defense of heaven, but the guardianship of humanity itself. Cast down but not destroyed, Satan turned his fury toward the earth, determined to wage war against those whom God had chosen. And yet, standing as the great commander of heavenly armies, Michael the angel remained vigilant, continuing his work as the protector of God's people. The Scriptures reveal glimpses of his presence throughout the course of human history. Every time the powers of darkness moved against the faithful, Michael was near, unseen but present, commanding legions of angels who resisted the spiritual assaults. His role was not one of comfort, but of warfare of spiritual protection in a cosmic battle that raged beyond human sight. In the visions of the prophet Daniel, Michael is described as the prince and protector of Israel, standing watch when empires sought to erase God's people from history. Nations rose and fell, armies marched across the earth, and kings schemed in their palaces. But behind it all was a deeper conflict, a battle of principalities and powers. In those moments, Michael the angel resisted demonic rulers of kingdoms, ensuring that God's covenant people were never utterly destroyed. Through centuries of struggle, Michael's presence carried a single message: that God's promises would not fail. The angel did not act with his own strength, nor did he speak with his own authority. Instead, Michael fought as the servant of the Most High, demonstrating that even the greatest of angels bows before the will of the Creator. His brilliance, his strength, and his command of armies were all reflections of the power of God, never his own pride. But Michael's mission was not limited to Israel alone. The book of Revelation expands the vision, showing his cosmic role in the end of days. There, the angel appears not only as defender, but also as conqueror, the leader who directs heaven's armies in the final battle against Satan. It is Michael the angel who drives the great dragon out of heaven, and it is Michael who ensures that Satan no longer has any claim to the heavenly throne. In this way, he stands as a symbol of both judgment and hope, the judgment of evil and the hope of God's eternal victory. As the narrative of Revelation unfolds, Michael is revealed in scenes of astonishing power. The heavens are open, armies of radiant angels march forth in perfect order, and at their head stands Michael, his sword of light blazing like fire. Opposite him, the dragon thrashes in fury, summoning his legions of darkness. The confrontation is cosmic, but the outcome is never in doubt. For Michael does not fight by chance. He fights in obedience to the command of God Almighty. This victory is more than a heavenly spectacle. It carries eternal meaning for humanity. When Satan is cast down, his power is broken, and the faithful are assured that no accusation can stand against them in heaven. Michael's triumph, then, is not for himself. It is for all who trust in God. It is a victory that secures the destiny of the faithful, a victory that guarantees that the Lamb's sacrifice is never undone. Yet even in this cosmic glory, Michael the angel is never depicted as one seeking worship or honor for himself. Unlike the fallen angels, he has no desire to usurp God's throne. His name itself is a question that points away from his own greatness. Who is like God? That very name is a declaration of humility, a reminder that even the mightiest servant is nothing compared to the Creator. In this truth lies Michael's strength. The fourth part of Michael's story reveals him not only as warrior, but also as guardian and witness. He is guardian of nations, protecting the unfolding of God's plan through history. He is the witness to the downfall of Satan, testifying to the justice of God in the face of rebellion. And he is the one who reassures humanity that no matter how fierce the trials, no matter how violent the assaults of the enemy, the final outcome is already secured. From the desert wanderings of Israel to the visions of prophets, from the battles of unseen realms to the coming of the end times, Michael the angel stands as a towering figure of faithfulness. He is both the sword and the shield, striking down the powers of darkness and defending the vulnerable against attack. His story in this phase is not one of quiet rest, but of unceasing vigilance. For the war against evil did not end when Satan was cast down. It only shifted to a new battleground, the earth itself. But even as this conflict continues, Michael's presence is a promise of hope. The angelic commander has never lost a battle entrusted to him by God. Every clash of sword and flame, every resistance against demonic powers, every victory in the heavens stands as a testimony that God's people are never abandoned. And though Satan prowls like a lion seeking to devour, the guardian stands ready, ensuring that the faithful will endure. Thus, the fourth part of Michael's story is both a continuation and a preparation. It continues the struggle that began in heaven, and it prepares for the final climax, when Satan will be defeated once and for all. Michael the angel remains at the center of this cosmic narrative, unshaken, unbroken, a radiant servant of the Most High. His very presence is a declaration that the war belongs to God and that victory is already assured. In this vision, the faithful find strength. They are not alone. The heavens are not silent. And above the chaos of earth, Michael the angel continues to shine, sword in hand, wings spread wide, ready to defend, ready to conquer, ready to remind all creation of the truth that no one is like God. As the story of Michael the archangel draws toward its climax, we are brought to the very heart of the cosmic conflict. For throughout history, angels have been portrayed as servants and messengers of God. But among them, Michael stands as a singular figure, not only a guardian and protector, but also the warrior who defeated Satan himself. To truly understand the weight of this victory, we must see the depth of the final confrontation and its eternal consequences. The war in heaven, described in the book of Revelation, is not a symbolic tale alone. It is presented as a reality that shook both heaven and earth. Michael, the angel whose very name means "who is like God," stepped into the center of this battle as the one chosen to lead the heavenly hosts against Satan, once known as Lucifer, the light bearer. Lucifer's pride and rebellion had grown to the point where he sought not only power, but the throne of God himself. The arrogance of this fallen angel infected countless others, and so the battle lines were drawn. When the time came, Michael's command resounded through the heavens. Countless angels, radiant and unwavering, stood under his banner. They did not fight for their own glory, nor for personal ambition, but solely for the will of God. The battle was unlike anything humanity could ever imagine, not fought with swords of steel, but with weapons of light and truth. Satan, filled with fury, unleashed all his might, seeking to overturn the order of creation itself. His armies, vast and terrifying, pressed against Michael's legions, yet they were no match for the authority Michael carried, for he did not fight with his own strength, but with the power of the Almighty. In that climactic struggle, the dragon, the symbol of Satan, was cast down. Michael's sword, blazing like fire, struck with divine finality. The heavens roared, and the earth trembled as darkness was driven out of the higher realms. Satan was hurled to the earth, stripped of his place among the heavenly hosts. This moment was more than a victory in battle. It was the sealing of an eternal truth. No created being can rise above the Creator. Michael embodied his very name, proclaiming through his victory, "Who is like God? No one." Yet this battle did not end the story. For though Satan was cast down, he continues to roam the earth, seeking whom he may devour. But Michael's victory provides a constant reminder that evil does not have the final word. God's purposes will prevail, and his servants, both angels and humans, are never abandoned. Michael continues to be described in Scripture as the protector of God's people, standing watch over nations, guarding the faithful, and ensuring that the kingdom of darkness does not overcome the light. This is why Michael's story is not just ancient history, but a living testimony for every believer today. His victory in heaven foreshadows the ultimate victory of Christ, who will return to cast Satan into the lake of fire forever. Michael's triumph reassures us that we too are not powerless. The battles we face, whether spiritual struggles, personal hardships, or the darkness that surrounds our world, are already framed within the reality of God's eternal victory. We see Michael not as a distant figure, but as a reminder of God's unfailing defense. He is the Archangel who shows us that no matter how fierce the enemy may appear, the faithful will always prevail through God's power. His story calls us to courage, to endurance, and above all, to loyalty to God. And so, as we close this journey through the story of the only angel who defeated Satan, the question comes to each of us. Will we stand with the kingdom of light as Michael and his angels did? Or will we let ourselves be deceived by the empty promises of the adversary? The choice is urgent because the same battle that raged in heaven echoes in our hearts and lives today. But the promise is sure. Those who remain faithful, those who trust in God's power, will share in the victory that Michael once declared over Satan. Now it is your time to act. If this story has opened your eyes to the unseen war that surrounds us, then take a stand. Live with the assurance that God's kingdom will never fall. Remember Michael's cry, "Who is like God?" Live your life as an answer to that question. And if this message has inspired you, I invite you to join this journey further. Subscribe to this channel so that together we can continue to uncover the mysteries of Scripture, the battles of angels, and the eternal truths that shape our faith. Click the notification bell so you won't miss the next powerful story, and share this video with someone who needs hope today. Stand strong, for the same God who empowered Michael to defeat Satan fights for you. The victory is already written, and you are called to be part of it.